Yeah, by the way.
We went back to Locke's church on Sunday and
안녕하세요 여러분. 매일매일 운동하기를 실천하고 있는 동탄 왕코입니다. 오늘 날씨 미쳤어요. 와, 날씨 너무 좋아. 와, 진짜 오늘 좀 토요일이죠 오늘. 와, 날씨가 너무 좋네요 여러분. 하지만 저 오늘 낮에는 자고 다시 야간 출근을 해야 됩니다. 와, 날씨 너무 좋다 진짜. 나가서 놀고 싶네요. 이런 날도 열심히 운동을 해야겠죠? 이런 날엔 역시 CNN이죠, CNN.
You feel love my family.
how did you feel hearing your family members parrot the things that Greg Locke had said about COVID that weren't true?
It made me angry.
And then see them get sick from it.
It made me very angry.
Even after what happened to Coburn, some members of this family still don't want to get the vaccine. What do you think about coronavirus?
What I think about? It's dangerous, but a good feeling sometimes is population control,
Yeah.
just like abortion.
Chip and Billy told us they felt like in the last 5 years that politics had made more tension in your family. Do you think that's true?
They think me and their mother's stupid, okay?
I don't think that's true. But why do you say that?
Well, because of their views, and they can't believe we believe the way we believe.
I'm actually shocked that we were able to even get together tonight. This is what Greg Locke and that type of cultish religion has wrought me. I feel like time with my uncle, because this is very rare.
Ellie Reeve, CNN, Mount Juliet, Tennessee.
One family in America. Thanks to Ellie Reeve for that report. We'll be right back.
I grew up in Thailand. It's a little bit conservative there. And ever since I moved here to America, I feel the freedom to be myself. I feel, the free spirit was running inside my system a lot more than when I was in Thailand. And that being said, it kind of meant just, being who I am and not afraid to express my feelings, my opinions, my emotions, and just be kind. I want to make an impact with people, to women's golf. And I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I really just want to make an impact. And I really think, in a lot of ways, not certainly how far I hit the ball, I showed to a lot of girls that anyone could do it out there. You don't have to be, world number one to win.
The world's biggest business stories in one place. Expert analysis from every corner of the globe. Marketplace Africa, all new Marketplace Asia and Europe. With CNNBusiness.com.
Once in a generation opportunity.
Technology, innovation, business.
making connections. But some connections are easier to make than others. With a CNN partner hotel, the world is always at your fingertips. CNN partner hotels, connected to your world.
Outside London, and this is CNN.
We wish everyone a safe Memorial Day weekend. The news continues. Want to hand it over to our good friend Michael Smerconish. Michael?
Anderson, thanks so much. I'm Michael Smerconish in for Chris Cuomo, and welcome to Prime Time. So, there will be no 9/11 style investigation into the events of January 6th. As expected, there were not 10 Senate Republicans willing to go along with such an inquiry. At first blush, it sounds bewildering, disinterested, even cold. When the 35 Republican senators who today blocked the January 6th commission go home for their Memorial Day recess, I'm sure they're going to take a moment to remember our heroes who gave their lives to protect our freedom all around the globe. So why doesn't that type of reflection translate into honoring the Capitol Police officers who gave their all to protect them on January 6th? And to the ones still working daily to keep them safe, like Eugene Goodman, who used himself as bait for the mob to keep the rioters away from the Senate chamber, still full of lawmakers. Goodman also rushed Senator Mitt Romney to safety. Bravery like that, it earned Goodman the Congressional Gold Medal, and no senator could deny his courage that day, including this one.
If not for the quick thinking and bravery of Officer Eugene Goodman, in particular, people in this chamber may not have escaped that day unharmed.
Eugene Goodman was on duty as usual last night, protecting some of the very senators who spent hours stalling and sidetracking while most of us were sleeping, forcing the final vote to block the bipartisan commission into this holiday Friday, when the attention of so many Americans is elsewhere. The direct pleas from the late Officer Brian Sicknick's mother to GOP lawmakers went all but nowhere. Today, she told Jake Tapper that while senators were nice to her, many of the meetings were tense because she didn't think they were sincere.
If they had a child that was hurt, or was killed on a day like that, they would think very differently. Or if they were hurt, I mean, they could have very well, somebody could have been killed, one of the congressmen, one of the senators, but apparently they just think, well, you know, we're safe because of the men in blue.
Here are the 6 Republicans who voted to advance the bill. Take a look. Including Lisa Murkowski, who decided not to grant Mitch McConnell's request for a personal favor because she's not nearly as worried, if at all, about political risk.
To be making a decision for the short-term political gain at the expense of understanding and acknowledging what was in front of us on January 6th. I think we need to look at that critically. Is that really what this is about? Is everything is just one election cycle after another?
Well, that's a fair question. This calculation by more than 36 Republican legislators is based on the belief that riding the tide of Donald Trump's coattails through 2022 and 2024, well, that's the ticket. The party has ousted Liz Cheney for this exact reason. She was the final Republican leader who sought to pull the party onto a different course, one that harkened back to an era of tradition, small government, family values. You can look no further than Lindsey Graham to see that GOP leaders have made a different calculation.
I've always liked Liz Cheney, but she's made a determination that the Republican Party can't grow with President Trump. I've determined we can't grow without him.
The GOP made this decision to stick with Donald Trump and his acolytes just before the general election in 2016. And 5 years and one lost election later, they're sticking to their guns. A January 6th commission may turn out findings that will make it impossible for the GOP to go forward with that strategy. It would also require them to relive and relitigate the big lie. So that's the state of play tonight. Like I said, it sounds bewildering, but there are explanations. First, the current GOP doesn't feel compelled to yield to critics who find the party at odds with democracy, whether that's demanding answers to who knew what on January 6th, ensuring ballot access, or ridding its ranks of conspiratorial theorists. See, it's a strategy premised on winning. They aren't motivated to investigate the events of January 6th because their base doesn't demand it. They view polling places as locations to gain advantage by limiting ballot access, reducing early voting, and imposing ID requirements. And while there's been no discernible effort to grow the GOP tent in years, the party is likewise loath to throw anybody out for fear of alienating any part of the base. Hence the tolerance of Marjorie Taylor Greene. CNN's Donny O'Sullivan was at the latest Matt Gaetz and Greene traveling roadshow and talked to some of those following their lead. Donny, what'd you find?
Hey, Michael. Yeah, I mean, look, that event last night, that Greene Gaetz event, took place in Dalton, Georgia. And the last time we were in Dalton was actually 48 hours before the insurrection. Last night it was a bit like returning to Oz and the Wizard of Oz. There has been a new president inaugurated now, but so many of the people I spoke to were telling me the same things last night that they were telling me on the 4th of January earlier this year, when they were saying that Biden is not the fairly elected president of the United States, and people are still clinging on to this belief that Trump could in some way come back, and they are looking to the Arizona audit, they are looking to what's happening in Georgia, also in their own state, and clinging on to that belief that Trump in some way could come back, which of course it's being egged on by the former president. And look, I think it's easy for folks to look at this and to look at statistics that have came out in the past few days about how many Republicans and how many Americans believe in conspiracy theories like QAnon. But when they are watching a set of, essentially MAGA media, and when they are listening to the president's allies on social media, that is their reality. Michael?
Donny, I'm curious to know, do you sense that there's a love for Marjorie Taylor Greene in settings like you were visiting last night? Or is that they so despise who they perceive her enemies to be that they sign up with her?
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously we heard a lot this week about the atrocious comments that Greene made about the Holocaust, but I asked many people who were going into that event last night, which was in Greene's constituency, by the way, what they thought of those comments, and they like Greene not despite those comments, they like her because of those comments. They view it as her speaking her mind. And I actually spoke to one woman who was on her way into the event last night, and here's what she had to say.
A lot of people don't like Greene.
That's okay, because you know what? A lot of people didn't like Jesus Christ.
Do you think she should apologize?
Actually, I don't know exactly what was said about the Holocaust as to what she said.
Yeah. She compared COVID restrictions to the Holocaust.
Well, I can understand that with Mengele, the Nazi, and how he used children and people to experiment with experimental drugs.
So you're talking about the vaccine?
Yes.
And obviously we should just point out what I was speaking to that lady about afterwards, that, the Nazis weren't testing experimental drugs on themselves. The vaccine has been taken by Trump himself, so obviously the comparison is totally ridiculous. But Michael, finally, I would just say that, this all ties together. The big lie, these Holocaust comparisons, the anti-vax stuff, everything, it all ties together. It's all part of this one big conspiracy. You know, I think sometimes we talk about QAnon as if it's detached from the election lies, as if it's detached from the comments and anti-vaccine conspiracy theories, but it's not. It is all, for many of the people I meet out on the trail like this, it's all part of the one conspiracy, and it's all part of the one set of beliefs, and it's all part of a set of beliefs that, frankly, Republican leaders are not calling out.
So, Donnie, the woman that you interviewed who was dressed like Evel Knievel wasn't aware of Marjorie Taylor Greene having said those things because the channel she watches doesn't cover her saying them. Thank you so much for your report, as always.
Thanks, Michael.
Donnie's too young to know the Evel Knievel reference, I fear. Let's break it all down. Brendan Buck was a top aide to former House Speakers Paul Ryan and John Boehner, and CNN senior political analyst Ron Brownstein is back. Brendan, let me begin with you. It's not a complicated vote today. Why would Republicans vote for it when it could yield nothing but bad information for them just on the cusp of the midterm election?
Yeah, bad information about Donald Trump, bad information about their own roles in leading up to it. Look, we can talk about how they are trying to avoid a midterm surprise. We can talk about Donald Trump's sway over the party, and I think both of those things are a big factor in what's taking place. But what we've just been talking about is actually, I think, the much more troubling aspect. And what Republican senators were doing, voting against this commission, was reflecting their constituents. This was an easy no vote for them. Their constituents don't. There's a whole lot of speak that shows most Republicans think that riot was led by left-wing activists trying to make Donald Trump look bad. This is the reality that a lot of voters have. Those senators are reflecting their voters, and that's not to say that the elected officials don't have a responsibility here, but it is the reality that so many base Republicans live in, and senators, frankly, are prisoners to it, and so they're reflecting the voters that they have back home.
Ron, there's no love lost between Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump. This was an opportunity where he could have allowed a commission to do his dirty work, right? Impanel a commission, let them do an investigation, find out exactly what went down at the White House the afternoon of January 6th, but he didn't go that Machiavellian route. Why?
Yeah. Well, I think for the reasons that Brendan said. I mean, you know, as I wrote in February, the extremist wing of the Republican Party has become too big for the party leadership to confront. I mean, the big reality we are facing, I mean, the macro story that we are facing is that the fear of demographic eclipse is eroding the commitment to democracy among a significant share of the Republican electorate. You know, 90% of Republicans say that Christianity in America is under assault. 2/3 to 3/4, depending on the poll, say that discrimination against whites is now as big a problem as discrimination against minorities. And all of that is feeding an atmosphere of maintaining power by any means necessary. And when you add up all the pieces that are happening, this vote today on the commission being one just small piece of the picture, with the voter suppression laws that are advancing, these audits in Arizona and Georgia, the challenges to Republican officials who certify the election, you know, I agree with those analysts who say we are facing the biggest challenge to small d democracy in the country since at least the Civil War and maybe at any point in our history.
Brendan, do you accept that?
Well, I certainly think there are challenges to our democracy, and I see it in Congress all the time. We can't get basic things done because both sides, at least their voters, hate each other. Look, my former boss, John Boehner, worked famously with Ted Kennedy to do No Child Left Behind. Paul Ryan worked with Senator Patty Murray to do big deals. Big deals are almost impossible now because that is treason to a lot of voters. And I think that is a real erosion of democracy, our ability to come together and have any middle ground. Because when you think the other side is trying to ruin your way of life, there's not a lot of incentive to work together. Now, I will challenge that. I don't think that some of the voting laws, particularly in Georgia, my home state, I think that those have been wildly exaggerated, the effect of those. And I think that there's a lot of hyperbole going on. So I don't think that necessarily democracy is at risk through some of those laws right now. But it doesn't mean that there aren't efforts underway that we need to be cautious of, particularly As we've seen in Georgia, you have people running for Secretary of State like Jody Highsmith running on the concept that the election was stolen. And so those are the things that I'm worried about.
Ron Brownstein, final observation. Yeah. Another brilliant piece in The Atlantic in which you wrote about what the Republicans are up to out on a grassroots level. We'll put it up on the screen. Reducing access to mail balloting and early voting, imposing new voter identification requirements, purging voters from registration lists, limiting the use of ballot drop boxes, blocking state court oversight of voting laws, and increasing Republican state officials' authority to override the decisions of local election officials who are Democrats. All that is taking place, and you say, hey, Democrats, you're running out of time. Explain quickly.
Yeah, look, it may be true that both parties view the other as a threat to the country, but only one party is acting on that in a way to systematically reduce access to the ballot and to
오늘 여기까지만 하겠습니다.
try to overturn democratic victories in 2022.
이제 영어 공부 1시간 하고 잘 겁니다. 오늘 걷지 않으면 매일 뛰어야 됩니다, 여러분. 공부하세요.
What's happening in the red states now and what it might mean for, again, small d democracy in 2022 and 24. They have 49 votes in the Senate for sweeping democracy reform. They don't have Joe Manchin, and they don't have the votes, even if they had the 50, to roll